Hi, and welcome to the Folio Sightlines blog. I'm Greg Vigrass, president of Folio Institutional, and I'm glad to have with us today Leila Shaver. Leila founded My RIA Lawyer because she realized she could best serve financial advisors through her own firm, taking a more creative and straightforward approach to defend clients against abusive regulators, third-rate providers, and greedy investors. Leila assists financial advisors across the nation with compliance matters and protects their businesses from an unfortunate end. She's also a strong advocate for small business and an active member of the Atlanta, Georgia community. Well, Leila, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
In preparation for this interview, you mentioned the top questions that you hear on a continuous basis from RIAs. Those were, what kind of advertising can I do? What kind of fees can I charge? What suitability-related information do I need to gather from clients? When do I need to update my Form ADV? And what are my ongoing compliance responsibilities? A little bit of an open-ended start here, but can I ask you to elaborate on each of those a bit?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So for the first question, what kind of advertising I can do, you can do a lot of traditional forms of advertising. So we don't see this as much with our more seasoned, let's say, advisors. But we are seeing it with our younger millennial age advisors, and that's getting on social media, posting on a website, blog, going on to LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and posting thoughts, information, providing graphics, providing free downloads to the end user, the client, and a lot of advisors in their advertising are starting to niche down as well. So we're seeing an emerging market that is focused on advertising to millennials. And of course, you see a lot of advisors who are advertising and doing advertising targeting older individuals. So those who may be interested in retirement planning, who may not have done retirement planning and are getting close to or at retirement age and are looking to kind of fast track their ability to fund the rest of their lives, essentially. So there's a lot of different kinds of advertising, a lot of online digital marketing. We're seeing a comeback of snail mail type advertising, so flyers, doing webinars, doing in-person luncheons. So advertising is not just online and it's not just digital. We're seeing all types. Now there are different requirements that go with advertising. So that kind of goes to one of the questions about ongoing compliance responsibilities. So when it comes to advertising, you want to make sure that anything that's in print, anything that you are providing to potential clients, that you're keeping a record of. So whether that's a screenshot of your website or keeping a copy of your mailer, or if you're doing something like radio advertising, whether it's an ad that's run on a radio station or for a lot of advisors and a growing number of advisors, those who actually have their own radio show, keeping recordings of those radio shows is really important. Now, one of the questions you mentioned was, what kind of fees can I charge? Now, we're seeing this question a lot because we're kind of seeing a shift in the different business models for advisors. We're seeing a lot of advisors, especially younger advisors, that are focusing less on the percent of AUM model and are looking to do a monthly retainer type fee, or doing financial planning fees. And so the question really you want to ask is, what does my regulator say about fees? For state-registered RIAs, you really want to make sure you're looking at the policy position that state has taken. There are actually, believe it or not, some states who believe there is a max amount you can charge per hour, for example. So if you are doing hourly work based on, just small projects you may take on for a potential client, there are some states who take a position as the max hourly fee you can charge. There are some states that also take a position on what's considered kosher in terms of a financial planning fee. $5,000 versus $50,000. I've seen advisors charge both those fees for financial planning. But again, you want to see if your state regulator has taken any sort of policy position when it comes to those fees. Retainer fees, we're actually seeing some pushback from state regulators. And when I say retainer fee, I mean a monthly fee you charge, and it may cover some services, so maybe it covers a certain amount of time that you spend with a client, or it just covers accessibility, so the client's ability to call you and ask questions or follow up. Some regulators are uncomfortable with this kind of fee, mostly because it's unclear what the client is receiving for that fee. Other states are perfectly fine with it. So, again, it's a potential issue that could come up with your state regulators, so you want to make sure that you are talking to your regulators. You want to understand their policy position on the retainer fees, if that's something you're choosing to do. And if you are doing it and you want to err on the side of caution, then I would provide specifics as to what that fee covers. And keeping in mind that just because you register in a state and the state examiner doesn't say anything about your fee structure doesn't mean that it can't come up at a future time. So, for example, when you update your Form ADV, we've got that coming up first quarter of the year for most advisors whose fiscal year ends December 31st. It could possibly come up during then. It could come up in a routine examination. So don't think that just because you registered with those fees disclosed in your Form ADV that an examiner or the regulator couldn't possibly take issue with it at a later date. Another question that comes up is the suitability-related information you need to gather from clients. So as a registered investment advisor, as an investment advisor representative, you are a fiduciary. You have to do what's in the best interest of your client. That also means that you have to make sure that any recommendations, any portfolio you put your client in, that it's suitable for your client. So you want to make sure on at least an annual basis you are reconfirming suitability information. So you want to look at, time horizon. You want to look at risk tolerance. You want to look at liquidity needs. You want to look at, what are the long-term goals of the client? What are the short-term goals of the client? And you want to check in on at least an annual basis and make sure nothing has changed in their life. Maybe they have aging parents they now have to care for. Maybe they have children that have moved back into the home that they have to care for. Maybe long-term goals have changed, health issues come up, all these different things. So you want to make sure you are updating suitability information, and you want to make sure this is documented. It's not enough to say, I talked to my client and verbally reconfirmed. Regulators, examiners are coming in doing routine examinations. They want to see documented suitability reviews. So making sure that you have some sort of questionnaire. Best practice would be to have the investment advisor sign the suitability form, showing that they have reviewed the information, they've confirmed the information, and that it is accurate. So from a litigation standpoint, this helps us, the lawyer who's defending you, from any sort of client complaint that may occur in the future by saying, well, here's your suitability questionnaire where you provided this information and confirmed it was accurate. So that's really important. Now, you want to look at tax returns. You want to look at statements, confirms. You want to understand the other accounts that your client may hold with other advisors or other custodians. You want to look at insurance. You want to look at 401ks. You want to look at the total universe of finances for the client to the extent that they provide it. Now, there are going to be clients who feel uncomfortable providing their tax returns or who may feel uncomfortable providing other information for you. So again, you want to document your best efforts in retaining that information, and if you're unable to do so, having some sort of documented piece that shows that you attempted to provide it and the client declined to provide it. So you want to do your suitability confirmations at least once a year. You want to gather documents that show the financial health of your client, so looking at, again, tax returns, other accounts, retirement information, etc. And then if you're not able to get the documents, making the decision of whether you want to continue to have them as a client, and if so, making sure you're documenting that they decline to provide that information, which again kind of goes to your ongoing compliance responsibilities. And then finally, one of your other questions was, when do I need to update Form ADV? This is a great question because we have annual amendments coming up in January. So if your fiscal year ends December 31st, you will be filing your annual amendment first quarter of the year. If your fiscal year doesn't fall on December 31st, then you're having to file your annual amendment 90 days after within 90 days after the end of your fiscal year. And there are other than annual amendments you can also make, and these filings are made when you change your business model. So maybe you're offering new services, you are updating your fees, you have some sort of disclosure you need to make in terms of any sort of disciplinary or regulatory issues that may have come up. So, for example, you were subject to a routine examination and ended up getting fined and having to pay a fine. So you would have to update Form ADV in those circumstances. Changes to your contact information. If you've moved your office, you have a new telephone number, you've opened a new office, those are all times you want to update Form ADV. And again, that all goes to your ongoing compliance responsibilities and ensuring that you are providing up-to-date information to your clients.
Thank you very much.
That's about your questions.
Oh, you absolutely did, and thank you for very comprehensive answers. One follow-up question that did come to mind as we were going through that, step back to the discussion that you just had around fees. Are you seeing, or is it more common these days to see advisors supporting and or offering different fee structures that would be appropriate to different constituents and how those people like to pay, or are firms still sort of picking a single fee methodology, billing methodology, and sticking with that?
So we're definitely seeing a majority of advisors still sticking to, the tried and true percent of AUM fee structure. But we are seeing different fees being implemented. So we're seeing a lot more advisors who are moving away from portfolio management, for example, and just focusing on financial planning or shorter-term projects, helping with student loan consolidation and payoff, helping a couple that wants to buy a home and doing budgeting and short-term goals on how to ensure that they have, the amount of down payment they need for their loan, for example. So we are seeing advisors who are coming up with services that may be shorter in term and then having different fee structures for those different services. And then we're also seeing the emergence more of advisors doing these, monthly retainer type services where a client gets access and perhaps more specific services for paying a monthly ongoing fee. So we're definitely seeing more fee structures that are outside of the traditional percent of AUM fee structure we normally see, and we are seeing advisors adding more specific services that they can provide clients.
Great, thank you very much for that added information. This is the first installment of our interview with Leila Shaver. Stay tuned for part 2, coming soon. If you'd like to receive more insightful tips about growing your business, sign up for Folio Institutional's blog at info.folioinstitutional.com/blog. Neither Folio Institutional, its parent, Folio Financial Incorporated, or any sister companies have a contractual relationship with Leila Shaver.